At the end of this part, we're exactly halfway through the novel. The spring has been coiled up, and in the second half we'll see the tragic consequences of Steerforth's contempt for convention and Emily's desire to become a lady. What's meant by a genteel profession, and why might that of a proctor be considered as the genteelest of them all? I'll try to give a short answer, but whole books would be required for a full treatment of this topic due to the overlap between genteel and the idea of a gentleman, something which preoccupied Dickens throughout his entire life and his career as a novelist. The genteel professions were principally concerned with the law, the established church, the military and politics. Positions could be bought and sold, with patronage and connections being all important. At the time, these words wouldn't have been applied to the system as a whole, but in retrospect, it was corrupt and rotten to the core. Thank goodness things have changed. The principal requirements of a genteel profession were that it shouldn't look like work, and that it required a minimum of time and effort, balanced by a maximum of prestige. In this respect, the life of a proctor, adjudicating on the minutiae of antiquated laws in an entirely nepotistic and circular system, promised the greatest rewards to its practitioners for dragging proceedings out as long as possible. This was a theme which Dickens pursued with even more ferocious satire in both Bleak House and Little Dorrit. Since Dickens has finally come clean and revealed that Steerforth isn't quite the idealised figure of David's boyish imagination, let's take a look behind his name. Although his full name is James Steerforth, the forename is rarely mentioned. Miss Moucher, however, calls him by the nickname Jemmy, which is slang for a crowbar, suggesting that Steerforth will force his way in. Watch out, little Emily! His surname, though, is fairly transparent, and Dan Peggotty, who misremembers it as Rutherford, knew it was something in the nautical line. As a steerer, he leads or guides on the ocean of life. But where and to what purpose? Simply forth or forwards towards his own destruction? David mulls over the nutshell philosophy that Steerforth has just confided to him. Ride on over all obstacles and win the race, and wishes that his hero had some worthy race to run. Just a month to go until publication, and Dickens's new weekly journal still hasn't got a title. But we learn that it is conducted by Mr. Charles Dickens, and that it's designed for the entertainment and instruction of all classes of readers. At just twopence a week, it was certainly a luxury that most literate households would have been able to afford. In correspondence with Forster at the start of February, Dickens was still toying with a variety of names, including the Microscope, the Lever, the Rolling Years, and the Comrade, coming closest to his final choice with the Household Voice. On the following page, there's a half-page ad announcing an exhibition of the works of industry of all nations, to take place in London in 1851. This was what was to become known as the Great Exhibition, a high point of the mid-century in Britain. It was to feature raw materials, manufactured goods, machinery and applied science, and the latest works in the plastic arts. I'll have more to say about this extravaganza and Dickens's views of it when we get closer to the event. By February the 4th, Dickens had finally decided that his journal should be called Household Words, drawing on a line from Shakespeare's Henry V. He shared this eureka moment in a letter to Angela Coutts, his partner in the Urania House project, a home for the rehabilitation of fallen women. And in the same letter, he discusses the opportunities afforded by emigration to New South Wales, a theme that he states he will pursue both through the pages of Household Words and in the ongoing plot of Copperfield. In another letter to Miss Coutts, he complained bitterly that he was having to rewrite the character of Miss Moucher, because the dwarf chiropodist Jane Seymour Hill had complained that Moucher was a potentially libellous depiction of herself. See if you can spot the difference in the next part. A rare moment of conviviality in David's rooms is interrupted and spoiled by the incursion of Steerforth's manservant, the oh so respectable and totally unfathomable Littimer. Fizz here presents a deathbed scene, a staple of Victorian fiction, the most famous of all being the death of Little Nell in the old curiosity shop. We've been primed for this event with reports of Barkis's declining health, and David returns to Suffolk to witness his final moments. "He's a-going out with the tide," said Mr. Peggotty behind his hand. My eyes were dim, and so were Mr. Peggotty's, but I repeated in a whisper, "With the tide?" "People can't die along the coast," said Mr. Peggotty, "except when the tide's pretty nigh out. They can't be born unless it's pretty nigh in, not properly born till flood. He's a-going out with the tide." "Barkis, my dear," said Peggotty. "She be Barkis," he cried faintly. "No better a woman anywhere." "Look, here's Master Davy," said Peggotty, for he now opened his eyes. I was on the point of asking him if he knew me, when he tried to stretch out his arm and said to me distinctly, with a pleasant smile, "Barkis is willing." And, it being low water, he went out with the tide. My question this week is almost a follow-up to the previous one. David considers the boat builder Ham and concludes that nature has given him the soul of a gentleman. What gentlemanly qualities does Ham possess that Steerforth lacks? Class dismissed.